right, this is the last non-calculator portion of the test. You have to find the area of a triangle using a formula of the determinant. This right here is your formula. Okay? To set this up, you're going to do 1/2 the 3 by 3 determinant of a -8, a 4, and a 1, a 2, 6, and a 1, and a 3, -2, and a 1. When you do this, you got to take the first two columns and carefully place them in an organized way because you're going to be using diagonals to solve this. There's my first diagonal. There's my second. There's my third. We have to take the product of the first diagonal plus the product of the second plus the product of the third. The product of my first diagonal is -48. The product of my second is a 12. The product of my third is -4. Okay? If we add all of those together, okay, you get a -40. Okay? So you get -40 if you add all of those products together. Once you have that done, then you carefully draw in your next set of diagonals. There's the first, second, and third. So taking my time, making sure I do this accurately, take the product of the first plus the product of the second, the product of the third. Product of the first is 18. Product of the second is 16. -2, -8. And the product of the third is an 8. Okay? We have -2 times a -8. We get +16. What does that give you? 42. All right. 34 plus 8 is 42. Now this is where students will mess up. Hopefully you're not in this boat. Hopefully you will take your time and energy and take the first. And what do we have to do? Minus the second, right? So you have -40 minus 42. What does that give you? That gets you a -82. I don't know why my board's lagging so much right now. It's really starting to tick me off. All right, so now that's not my final answer because what do I have to do? I have to take half of that and the absolute value of that. So we have to take half of a -82, and that gives us a -41, but we have to take the absolute value of that, and that becomes a 41 units squared, which is the absolute value of the area of the triangle, or just the area of the triangle. Okay? So you have to, by the way, the difference between number 7 and 8 is not that much. Okay? But you have to know how, if you're going to have you're going to have to know how to do this problem, because you're going to have one exactly like it, just with different numbers. Okay? All right, here's problem number 1. It says identify A, B, and C, which means you need to be able to change things to standard form. Okay? Right now, this is totally not in standard form. So my suggestion for everybody is to multiply everything by a 3 to begin with. We have 3 times a -1/3, which gives me a -x. We've got 3 times 2y, which is a 6y. And 3 times a -4/3, which would give me just a -4. Okay? So the first thing you need to understand is A, B, and C all need to be integers with the greatest common factor of 1. And A cannot be negative. All right? So A can't be negative. So if I wanted to move the y values across, right here, I'm going to take that, Maddie, I'm going to chuck it across. What are you going to get? That's right. So I have a -x. I've got a -6y equals a -4. But you said the a value cannot be negative. So what can I do to this whole dadgum thing? Multiply it by negative. When I multiply it by negative, I get x. I get a plus 6y. And I get a plus 4. Now my a value, everybody, is 1. My b value would be a 6, and my c value would be a 4. This is the standard equation because the GCF, which means greatest common factor between a 1 and a 6 and a 4, that greatest common factor is indeed 1. So you don't have to worry about reducing anything. All right? This is the standard form. So you'd say a is 1. B is 6. C is 4. You're going to have a problem like that. It's going to be multiple choice, but you're going to have a problem like this where you have to change something to standard form. Now, if it says identify the x-intercept and the y-intercept, let me refer to a cool little formula that I gave you guys a long, long time ago. Galaxy clock on. All right. Yes? C over A is your x-intercept, and C over B is your y-intercept. By the way, these formulas, everybody, will not change. Only the numbers that you use. What was your C value? 4. So I put 4 over A value, which is 1. Here I put what? 4 over 6. So my x-intercept, everybody, would simply be at a what? 4, 0. My y-intercept, everybody, would be at a 0, comma, 2/3, because the reduction of 4 6 is 2/3. So here's your x-intercept and your y-intercept. Now before we move on to problem number 2, is there any way I could use the a, b, or c to find slope? Does anybody remember the formula for that? Y equals mx plus b, that's correct, that's slope-intercept form. But n will equal the negative a value over the b value. So if I wanted to find the slope of this equation, I would say negative. What was my a value? 1. What was my b value? 6. The slope of this line would be negative 1 over 6. So by the way, this is how you can find slope if and only if it is in what form? No, not slope-intercept. It has to be in standard. So if it's in standard form, your slope will be negative a over b every single time. Make sure you have this formula, and this formula in your journal. All right, guys. Slope formula. You guys remember the slope formula?
Yes, y1
Close.
y2 minus y1.
All right. Now, if you guys are going to do this, it's going to be very, very, very important that you label things correctly. All right? I'm going to put x1 right here, y1 right here, x2 right here, y2 right here. Now, when I do this formula, everybody, I always put things in parentheses to make sure you don't mess up a minus and a minus. All right? So what is my y2 value, everybody? My y2 value? Negative 3. Minus my y1 value, which is a positive 3. And that gets me a negative 6 up there in the numerator, which is the change in your y values, delta y. x2, negative 2. x1, 1. That becomes a negative 3, which is the change in your x values. You divide these right here. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is a positive 2. Therefore, you found your slope of your line to be 2, which is a 2-to-1 ratio. Up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1 is a positive slope. Now, it says, what is the linear equation in slope-intercept form? So that's where you guys say, not standard form. You can actually write this in what? Slope-intercept form. So right now, I want you guys to write y equals 2 times x plus b. And then, I'd like you to choose the easiest points to use. Do you guys want to use a 1 and a 3? Or a negative 2 and a negative 3. Choose the easiest. 1 and 3. If Andrew was going to say negative 2 and negative 3, I was going to veto him. All right? I veto you.
Okay.
All right. We're going to use 1 and 3 because I think it's a lot easier than a negative 2 and a negative 3. So we're going to use slope-intercept form to find our equation. This right here represents which value? The x or the y? X. So I'm going to plug that in there. This 3 represents my y value, so I'm going to plug it in right there. So remember, this is your x value, this is your y value. I'm going to write 3 equals 2. That's a horrible looking 2. 2 times 1 close parentheses plus the b value. And what does the b value always represent in y equals mx plus b? Okay. So here we go. We've got 3 equals 2 times 1, so we got 3 equals 2 plus the magical number we are looking for. 2 plus what number is 3?
1.
That's right, so my b value is a 1. So if it says write the equation like in slope-intercept form, you would say y equals the slope of 2 times x plus the y-intercept of 1. So the equation that goes with these points is y equals 2x plus 1. Do you need to know how to find slope? Yes. Do you need to know how to find the equation that goes with the slope through the points? Yes. This is a way of doing it. Not the only way, but it is a way. You can use graph paper if you wanted to plot the points and kind of figure it out by what it looks like in the graph. You can do that too. All right, moving down. I want you guys to look at problems number 3 and 4. I'm going to pause it and let you guys write down the pertinent information. All right, you guys are going to have 2 questions look exactly like this with just numbers that have been changed. It says to solve each system of equations, which expression could be substituted for x into the first equation? So you're substituting everybody into this equation, which means you have x minus y equals 1. You're going to use this equation and substitute it for x, which means, everybody, you just need to solve for x. All you have to do to solve for x is add a y to both sides, and you get x equals 1 plus y, but you could also say x equals y plus 1. This expression, everybody, is what you're going to take and substitute for x into the top equation. Does it ask you to solve it? No, it just says, what do you need to what? Substitute for the first equation. That's why the answer is A. So if we look at the second problem, problem number 4, we're substituting it into this. So what do I have? I have an x plus a 3y equals -5. And if I was going to use the process of substitution, what are we going to do? We just have to solve for x. If I'm solving for x, what do I have to do to both sides? Minus 3y to both sides. So you could say x equals -5 minus 3y, or you could say x equals -3y minus a 5. There it is. G. G. There it is. All right? So listen, you're going to have how many problems like this? 2. For each of them, what are you going to solve for? You're going to solve for x. All right? And it's going to be one of the bottom ones where you have an x just by itself. See how you have x, just one x? You don't have 3 x's or 4 x's or 5 x's. You're going to take that and solve for x. You have 2 of those. Here's the next 2 problems you need to write down. I want you guys to follow the bold instructions. Okay? So read it carefully. All right, in these 2 problems, it's asking you to take the first equation and multiply it by 4. So if we take the x values right here, and we just multiply it by 4, you get a 12x. If you take this 4 and multiply it to the -6, you get a -24x. All right, it says, by what number would you multiply the second equation in order to eliminate the x variable by adding? So basically, if you were to add these together, would you agree I need to get a -12x here? And what do I need to get down here? A positive 24x. So this one, what would I have to multiply this 4x by? A -3. That's why the answer is B. What would I have to take and multiply down here to get a positive 24? A positive 3, because 3 times 8 is 24. That's why this answer is F.